was precisely that, the dislocation, eviction, burning of villages, and the throwing out of 700,000 Palestinians from their villages, and the forceful occupation after the British mandate ended on maybe 15th May 1948. Some of our elder journalists will remember there was a time when the CIA carried out covert operations. They have killed Lumumba in the Congo, they have killed President Allende in Chile, they have knocked out a lot of left-wing leaders all over the world, but never was it admitted. It was always a covert operation. Of course, journalists and other writers and analysts, they piece these things together and it was traced back. But the point is, it was covert, nobody admitted to these things. You have a new normal. You see, friends, you're passing through a phase, you must understand it's a new milestone in the history of the world. You must understand that. All these things are new normals now. That a regime, a rogue regime sitting in Tel Aviv with their backs covered by the Americans and Donald Trump can announce who is in the hit list. This is the people we want to assassinate. And they do it. So, this is where journalism comes in. So, you have a situation where journalists who are at least trying to reach the truth out, if they become too popular and they become a voice in the local population, in the local communities, they are seen as a definite threat and must be taken out. It's been happening before even 17th October happened in 2023. You had the assassination of Shireen Abu Akleh, an American citizen. She was an American citizen, a Palestinian ethnically. And she had a popular face because she was there on the front line reporting. And a 20-year-old Israeli sniper was charged with eliminating her. 11th of May 2022, this is before 7th October 2023, mind you. The sniper technique was perfected. She had press written all over her. She had a helmet with press written. She had a bulletproof vest with press written on it. There was a press car standing next to her. And this sniper was charged to eliminate her. And he eliminated her. What are the numbers we are seeing? I don't know, I've never verified it, but according to a report by the Watson Institute of International and Public Affairs, the war in Gaza since October 7 has led to the death of more journalists than the combined total killed during the US Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Yugoslav War of 1990s in the early 2000s, and post 9/11 war in Afghanistan. This is some figure. See, the targeted attacks have been planned to the T. There's a channel called Al Mayadeen, associated with, I think, the Hezbollah. And it was that period when Lebanon was being bombed by the Israelis. This group of about 10 or 11 of them were staying in one compound. One night, targeted bombing, all those entire 10, 11 of them were finished in life. It's always targeted. We take another case, the Haji Tower. Some of the things we must read out. The Haji Tower airstrike, which occurred on 10th of October, 3 days after that. This is a tower somewhere in Gaza City, I think, which housed maximum number of media organizations and media officers. They bombed it to rubble. Overnight they bombed it to rubble. 4 journalists died. All the offices of the media companies were finished in that, in one attack, because they were all in one building. 10, 11 of them. They thought he was at home, he was was not at home, he was reporting. Entire family wiped out. And I actually saw that clip. He was crying. He went with his friends back to his family home, somewhere in Gaza city. They performed the last rites. He put his bulletproof back, put on his helmet and went back to report. And that's the journalist. His son, who survived, died the next year. Hamza Dado, in 2024, targeted as again a Hamas operator. So these are the things wherever these assassinated, announced killings are, they say is a Hamas operator. One particular person, I'll give you his name. He was part of the Reuters team who won a Pulitzer Prize for Reuters. And he was identified as a Hamas operator. For the last 10 years, he was working with Reuters, won them a Pulitzer Prize, and he's still a Hamas operator. Palestinian photojournalist Fatima Hassouna was killed on 16 April 2025, along with 10 members of her family, in an Israeli airstrike on their home in Gaza city. She became the subject of the documentary film Put Your Stone in Your Hand and Walk. And the film was selected for the ACID film program show during the 2025 Cannes Film Festival. So yes, the world recognizes this. The cardinal in Italy took 9 hours and recited every single child who has been killed in Gaza. In the town of Utrecht in Holland, for each child killed, they have laid out the small shoes of the children in the sidewalks, calling for ceasefire. A very huge sort of digitally created ceasefire with the shoes of young children killed in Gaza. What has disgusted us is the last round of killings, which were open assassinations. On 10th August, Al Jazeera journalist Anas al-Shari, Al Jazeera correspondent Mohammad Fareki, and camera operators Ibrahim Zahir and Mohammad Naufal in Gaza were assassinated in a targeted bombing of their tent outside Shifa Hospital, Gaza City. The IDF claimed Anas was a Hamas operative and had put him on an open hit list even earlier. So Anas never spent any time at home. He was always moving around, trying to see that his family did not get him. On 25th August, this was again repeated. Just a few days ago, 5 journalists reporting from Al Nasir Hospital at Khan, Mohammad Salma, Al Jazeera cameraman, Hussam Al Masri, Reuters. This is the guy who was part of the Pulitzer team. Mariam Abu Daga, AP, who's got a little daughter who's been left here. And freelance journalists Muad Abu Taha and Muhammad Aziz. They were all killed in a serial hit of the same time. Now what's the strategy? It's very easy. They all know that the journalists, they camp outside or nearby the hospitals. They do that because the dead come in, the injured come in. They meet the parents and they get the information of who's getting killed, where the bombings are happening. So the hospital is a very key hub where they get the information from. And the IDF knows it. And they know that they are clustered in these tents around. And easy pickings. They just come there and kill them. And an old strategy, a long old strategy, what they call the double tap killing, which you use in organized war. You don't use it against journalists and relief workers. So Al Nasir Hospital, the last stage, you must have read about it. I mean, on the 5th floor, there's a balcony. The buildings in Gaza are not very tall. They are 5-story, 6-story maximum. So the fifth floor balcony gave a certain kind of aerial view of entire Gaza. So all those who are cameramen here, video journalists will know that these tripods were permanently mounted there. So whenever there was some action, bombing, these guys would get the images and they would relay it. So they had set up, that balcony was known as a press balcony. All the press people used to assemble there to basically record these things. And they knew that. So the first bomb, they attacked that balcony first. A few people were killed. And then when the relief workers and the associates of the journalists rushed to that spot, the second tank shell followed and the third tank shell followed. So double tap became triple tap. And 5 journalists as well as about 20 relief workers were killed on the spot. It was like, just very casually picking these off and then you issue an apology. And I was amazed for the first time the Indian government gave a condemnation of that journalist should not be killed. But they also said, yes, it should be investigated and the Israeli government is investigating. So the point is, where does this end? I have no answer. Maybe other speakers have. But somewhere we have to raise our voice. And I was reading a small opinion piece on Al Jazeera, and this is what Iman Gillis wrote recently as an appeal on the first anniversary of the killing of a friend and Gaza journalist, Amna Mumbai. I leave you with her words. If mourning Palestinian journalists allows you to feel less guilt, if it makes you feel as though you have fulfilled your duty towards them, then don't mourn them. We do not need more unities. We need justice. It is the least the world can do for the orphaned children of Maryam, Amna, Anis, and the other 244 slain journalists in Gaza. Friends, as we leave the hall after we finish, there is a small table with the 200, 250 journalists' photographs at the ground floor of the Patrkar Sangh. Please light a candle or offer something for those journalists. With that small introduction, I request Firoz, and also request, because we would like to hear more from the Ambassador, I request everyone to be short, and I really also would like, all our speakers who could make it, thank you so much, but a very, very special thanks to Srinivasan Jain, who's come all the way from Delhi, and he's taken all the trouble to come and share his experiences. He has reported extensively from Gaza, from the West Bank, and I'm sure we really, sort of be educated by his personal experiences there. But to give you a small 5-7 minutes sort of capsule, I request my friend Firoz to say a few words, and then we'll have the other journalists before the ambassador takes over.
Thank you, Kabir, and actually, thank you for Ambassador and actually everyone being here today, because with all the terrorism happening, we are wondering what was really going to happen. Would was very worried. So I think we have 80%, and I think it's a fair for all of us. I'll just say a few words firstly about the Palestinian journalists, because they've done something very important. They've not only told the stories of the people, each person who was murdered, but have actually changed the global balance of power. The Palestinian journalists have actually turned around the narrative, which was the dominant narrative of the Western world, imposed on the psyche of the West, not much of the global South, but it did have its impact. So within a matter of 2 years since 7th October, the Palestinian journalists who paid with their lives have changed the global narrative away from Israel, which is now a hated and reviled nation, including in America, undoubtedly within Europe. When Netanyahu just a little above Elon Musk, that is how low Netanyahu ratings are in the US today. The entire Israeli lobby, the extremist, racist Jewish lobby in America, today they are facing a pushback even from the conservative elements within American society. So it is not only about the stories that are told, but the narratives have carried the political weightage, which is leading to the political changes in the world. That is the role the journalists have played. The other thing is that what they've succeeded in doing with their simple mobile phones and the equipment and the bombs that we're facing is they've documented the war crimes in real time, which is why Netanyahu is facing an arrest warrant, so is Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, and so on a whole load of, we don't call it IDF, we call it Israeli Offensive Forces. So many of these crimes have been documented, and so many of these war crimes that they themselves have put on YouTube and on their Twitter handles are all being investigated. And we have that little girl called Hind Rajab, this Hind Rajab Foundation. There's a movie we made of Hind Rajab, that's what big breakthrough in Bollywood. The top Bollywood actors are actually making a movie around her. A girl who was shot with 353 bullets. So that Hind Rajab Foundation is now documenting and taking all these war criminals to court. But all this is again the effort of the Palestinian journalists. I'd just like to come to one important aspect because whenever Netanyahu or any of the extremist rabbis or the extremist Jewish Zionist elements talk, they always start with the 7th of October. And a lot of our friends get caught up in that, not friends here, but generally speaking, get caught in that trap. The point is, one is it doesn't go back to 1948, it goes back to all the way to 1860s, when the plans to create Israel and Palestine were created. It goes back to Christian Zionism, it goes back to the British Empire, and most problems in the world have come from Britain. This one is again come from Britain. Hitler was instrumental in settling Jews in the 1930s in Palestine. That was the deal, the Havar agreement between Hitler and the Jews in Germany, with the Zionists in Germany, where Hitler settled 60,000 German Jews in Palestine. Okay? Now the point is about the entire thing about the Gaza ghetto uprising. The 7th of October, in my mind, is basically, if you want to understand from the Indian context, is like the uprising of 1857. But we were living in a concentration camp. The people of Gaza and Shahid, Pradhan, my friend here, and myself, we've been to Gaza, we had organized a convoy all the way to there. We've been there. So for 17 years, since 2005, ever since the people of Gaza were blockaded and were in an open air prison in a concentration camp. So this was the Gaza ghetto uprising, like the Warsaw ghetto uprising of 1944. This was a prison break from the jail that had been put in for 17 years. And this was, and today Gaza, Iraq is like Stalingrad. It is at the very forefront of the resistance of the forces of marauding Western imperialism and terrorism. You have Keith Starmer, you had Rishi Sunak, you had Macron, you had Trudeau, you had Biden, you had Kamala Harris, you had Trump, all of them in together. Germany, the Germans, unbelievable, because America supplies the majority of weapons, 60 to 70%, but the other 30% are coming from Germany and France and Britain and Canada, including Saudi and the other countries are all sending weapons. So 7th of October was basically, and I'll give you 3 facts out here. And there was a fantastic Jewish journalist, he's married an Indian, Max Blumenthal, please note his name. He's the editor of Grey Zone, one of the leading investigative websites here in the world, Max Blumenthal. And he was the one actually who wrote the story and by referring to Israeli news sources. So I'll give you 3 simple facts. And we will to Gaza, you cannot go anywhere out of the world. To think that you could break through a wall and the idea of guys didn't know what was happening and Mossad didn't know what was happening is really living in a fairy tale and to think of that story that we got. And that is why Netanyahu maintained that there will be no investigation till the war is over. Just as you know, investigation to Furman and Patrkar. Okay. Similarly, no investigation to 7th of October. The 7th of October had been done by Hamas the way they said it was done. Netanyahu had the report out into the week. Okay. I'll give you 3 facts that Netanyahu knew it was coming. And I'll tell you why they had to do what happened. Okay. The New York Times carried a report on its front pages saying that Netanyahu was aware of the coming attack 1 year prior to the attack. This was the New York Times front page. I'll give you the date also. The second fact is that the Egyptian government warned Netanyahu 10 days before that an attack was coming. And Netanyahu wanted fake news and nothing much happened after that. The Egyptian government himself warned. The third fact is that the women soldiers guarding the perimeter of Gaza, who are surveilling it through the drones and the satellites and the cameras that are square foot of Gaza, those women soldiers were reporting back to the seniors that they are planning something. That we can see that they are changing and there are activities going on, they are planning something happening. They were warned not to speak out to the media, but they were faced military traps. These are 3 facts that have appeared in the Israeli media, not in the British media, not in the American media, certainly not in our media. So the Israeli media have been reading these stories. Now, what happened on 7th of October? Because a lot of our liberal journalists also get into this trap. 1200 got killed. The figure of 1200 is also not a true figure or a true figure. Okay? The point is that there were reasons why 7th of October happened. Number 1 was that living in a concentration camp for 17 years was not going to work out. People were going to break out of their jail. And let's go back to 2018, where the largest non-violent movement in the world has ever seen in this century. For 1.5 years, the people of Gaza marched every Friday to the wall, and they were fired. So people were giving lessons to the people of Gaza about non-violent resistance. We did not write a single letter supporting the non-violent movement over there. 1.5 years they marched to the borders. And they were shot in the elbow, they were shot in the eyes, they were shot in the knees, killed journalists, nurses, all kinds of stuff for 1.5 years. The largest non-violent movement. So one was they had to break out of the prison. The second point, when we were in Gaza, we met a number of these prisoner families where the 10,000 prisoners in the jails of Israel and the jails of horrendous torture that we are witnessing, now we are all aware of what's happening. So it was a live issue that they wanted people back. So 7th of October was about capturing certain Israelis, getting them and then doing a change which they have done in the past. They had a Gilad Shalit, Israeli soldier, they had him for 5 years and they exchanged for 1,007 Palestinians. So second part of the prison exchange. The third part is that this intifada is also called the Al-Aqsa Intifada, the Al-Aqsa Tufan. The second intifada was also called the Al-Aqsa Intifada. The first intifada in 87. In the second intifada, Ariel Sharon had gone to the Temple Mount, which is called the Temple Mount, Muslims and Christians called the Haram Sharif, and he said that we are going to destroy this mosque and build a temple here. Mandir bhai banane ka nara, resurrects of Jerusalem to Ayodhya. So that's when the second intifada broke out. And one of my heroes, and I believe the Nelson Mandela Prize, Marwan Barghouti, is still in jail, who was sentenced recently by Ben-Gvir from Swansea, go to the jail to Trenton. Marwan Barghouti is the Mandela of our times, and he's been in jail since 2002. Right? So the third part of the political prisoners, the Al-Aqsa thing, where every 2 weeks you have these extremist fanatical Jews going to the Haram Sharif and saying, we're going to take over the space and we're going to destroy the mosque. Okay. And the fifth part was when 10 days prior to 7th of October, you had Netanyahu going to the United Nations and showing a map in which there was no Palestine. And he drew what was called the India-Middle East Economic Corridor. And he said that the people of Gaza can keep on jumping around all they want, the chapter is over, and we are going to sign our agreements with Saudi as well, the Abraham Accords. So the 7th of October has actually ensured that the Abraham Accords are dead, and none of these vassal Arab governments can actually proceed with the signing of the accords. These were the reasons that led to the 7th of October. Okay? Briefly, I'll tell you what happened on 7th of October. When we broke out, the IDF did not respond for 5 hours. For 5 hours, the IDF did not drop. The first attack that the Hamas had was on a garrison outside. They attacked the military guys, and yes, 350 Israeli soldiers got killed. Afterwards, the idea was to take the hostages and take them back. The first story that tells us the truth of 7th of October was Yassin Porat, an Israeli Jewish lady, who spoke to Israeli Taz radio on October 13, and she basically said that I escaped from there because the Israeli troops targeted us. My friends were killed by Israeli machine gun fire by Israeli tanks. She was the first one who wrote this. Then we come to the Noah Music Festival. The Noah Music Festival has never been held around Gaza. Somehow it was shifted from the West Bank to the Gaza. 2-day festival became a 3-day festival. The Hamas guys went out and were wondering what the hell is going on there. So they decided to take some captives away. Israel dispatched its Apache helicopters and shot those guys. And now you need to write down a term or put it in your mind. It's called the Hannibal Directive. The Hannibal Directive is an Israeli term that if anybody of our civilians or soldiers would be caught by the Palestinians and then there will be prisoner exchange, kill the Israeli. So you had no Perez, an Israeli Air Force officer, reserve officer, who said that we witnessed mass Hannibal Directive action. There is also evidence that Max Blumenthal and other friends have brought to the surface. Two more things. Not a single child was killed by Hamas, burned by Hamas. The 40 babies that Biden said ran on photographs resigned. CNN said sorry. No Israeli women were sexually abused or raped. This was a report of the United Nations Human Rights Committee led by women who went to Israel. They told us that we want to meet these women. They had to receive a rape, none of them allowed to be. So all these things were taken apart. Now coming friends to what I see is panning out in Gaza and the axis of resistance. And what we are doing in India, we are not doing much, but what we can do in India is also commendable by if we have to take permission from both to get Gaza, it's really, we're living during this time. Shazan the Kamil out here, we have all managed that together the last time, the CPM and friends of the left. Basically, in a way I believe, Mr. Ambassador, that the Palestinian people are chosen. But I think the Palestinian people are chosen by the people of the world. Those who claim to be chosen by the people of God have a very racist ideology. Okay? Those elements of the Talmud and the Torah are highly racist because they consider the Palestinians and all of us as subhumans. Which is what Jesus Christ came and changed, and he said, blessed be the peacemakers, for we are all the children of God. That is why we are signing with Jesus today. So one is that the people of Palestine and undoubtedly the people of Gaza, the resistance is just unbelievable. 2 years of genocide, not a single white flag saying we are surrendering. They just refuse to leave. We will be buried there below the rubble, we will be buried there below your bombs. But we are not going to South Sudan, we are not going to Trump Towers, we are not going anywhere. We don't leave. And let me tell you one more thing, you will not find a single video of an Israeli soldier fighting with a Hamas guy, one-on-one. You only see bombs falling from the top. The video that you will see of the Hamas videos of the other faction that are fighting against the Israelis, you will see the videos. You will see them going up the tanks, you will see them fighting them, ambushing them or something like that. But the Israelis have been fighting with their technology, with their fancy 2,000-pound bombs. We've had 6.5 times, 7 times the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki on Gaza. This way, and still they're holding. So what we are witnessing is something very interesting. One is we are witnessing the political defeat of Israel in the region. We witnessed the military defeat of Israel in 2006 when we were defeated by Hezbollah. We were there, some of us went to Beirut during the course of war. We were stunned by the fact that Hezbollah could hold the borders and defeated Israel. So, Israel's military power is on the way even in Gaza. So they cannot sustain the genocide the way it is because things are turning around in the western world as well. The government is calling for the recognition of Palestine are actually just trying to save their face. The Britain is saying to recognize Palestine, France is saying You're saying ethnic Palestine, for God's sake, stop supplying the weapons for now. Alright? So one is we are witnessing the political defeat of the Israeli project. This is just a matter of time. I believe in the next 3 years, we are going to see the end of the apartheid Israeli project. Then there are certain terms which have been hit upon us by the Bidens and the Trumps and the Western leaders. There's an entire thing called Israel has the right to defend itself. Why do they keep on saying that? They keep on saying it because no colonial occupying power has the right to defend itself. There is no international law that says that the French in Algeria have the right to defend themselves, or the British in India, or the Americans in Vietnam, or in Iraq, or in Korea. No colonial occupying power has the right to defend itself in the land it occupies. It has the responsibility to protect the people it occupies. That is why the immediate keep on saying Israel has the right to defend itself. Then there is one very interesting thing that I think she is very popular among scholars now, Frances Calvini's. She is one of the people who kind of deserve the Nobel, everybody deserves the Nobel, apart from all the Palestinians who deserve the Nobel. The journalists, the doctors, the entire intellectual class of Palestine they wiped out. So Frances Calvini has taken a very important take on this. Israel has the right to exist. The point is they already exist. But the point is that no nation has some, right to exist. People have a right to exist. International law guarantees the right of people to exist and protects the right of people to exist. But Korea can become two Koreas, Germany can become two and become one. Poland was disabled World War II, became a big country. Countries come and go. And apartheid South Africa went. But the people stay. So this right to exist, right to defend itself is just spread in the minds without any basis in morality or international. The other third term that we get stuck in is the term of anti-Semitism. Now it is catching on in our country also. It's such a ridiculous term. The ambassador is a true blood Semite. The Palestinians have a recorded history of 4,000 years, but a history that goes back to Canaan, the Canaanite history of 11,000 years. They are able to survive. And the Ashkenazi, Khazar and Jews who come from Europe are being told that they are just 70 people. So the entire term of Semitism is ridiculous. It comes from Europe, it comes from the European left who have their own guilt. Today there is a wonderful video by Ilan Pape. Ilan Pape says that even after World War II, there were no liberals or even the left in Europe who said that the Jews should remain in Europe. That the solution is for the Jews to remain in Europe and for Europe to fight against racism. A solution for European racism was found in Palestine. This is Ilan Pape. So the entire terminology that comes from the West, the right to defend, the right to exist, the anti-Semitism, this is the European problem. We need to have our own political terminology. Alright? I'll just end now. Point is, I believe that many of us do, that there is a massive change in the balance of global power. America has been on the decline. I stand with Russia because Russia has been attacked by US and NATO. So the entire BRICS that is emerging and emerging fast as an economic bloc and the military power that are now challenging the West all over the place is changing to that. The other thing is the actual resistance, which is Palestine right at the front, has been on the vanguard at the front line. We have the Hezbollah in Lebanon, we have Syria fell apart. They call Hamas and Hezbollah as terrorists. My friends, the government of India has never called Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists. The United Nations doesn't call Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists. The only ones who call them terrorists are the terrorist nations of the West. Israel, America, and those few countries that call themselves the international community. So the actual resistance, all the way from, and the talking of terror, and you have Jolani, the Al-Qaeda chief of Syria, with Trump and with all the Western media. That is the act of terrorism. Okay? And then you have Iran and then you have Yemen. This actual resistance playing a critical role in changing the balance of power in the Middle East. I'm sorry that's the wrong term to use, in West Asia and across the world. And in that context, I think all this work that we do, this meeting itself is very important. I think all the journalists who come here is very important, despite the difficulties that we have today. And all the work that we done in this country. And we have ambassadors willing to work with us, come with us out of the country. I told him that we will go to sanctions. He said, no sanctions, just that we get like, कहीं जाएंगे घूमने के लिए. He said, no, nothing, that's it. I'll get up, start 8 o'clock in the morning, get the interviews, get the people, he's coming to work in work. Okay. So, all I'd like to say is we have a tradition, glorious Indian tradition that goes back a long, long way to the Palestinians. The issue of Palestine was interwoven into our own freedom struggle, as we all know. We have a regime, an unelected regime, political fraud today that is ruling us. So, I believe that the Indian people, Indian society, and the global movements that are bringing about global change. And let me tell you one last thing, that Palestine is the most popular movement ever in the history of the world. The Palestinian flags are at every dog show, every football stadium. Today, the Palestinian movement, kind of millions that are being mobilized on the streets of the world, we haven't seen it in decades, not at this level. And Palestine will be central geopolitical issue. And when Palestine is free, the world will be truly free. Thank you.
Thank you, Feroz, for this very interesting and thought-provoking backdrop is given to the conflict in this whole area. As far as focusing on the journalist issues, we have a few speakers before we finally request His Excellency to give his presentation. Can I request Sarfraz Azul? He is a very renowned editor of the Hindustan Daily for years and also the Secretary General of the Urdu Journalists Association. And the Khilafat Committee Chairperson too. So we are really happy to have him, and I request him to give some of his thoughts to our journalists.
मैं आपको ज़्यादा वक्त नहीं दूंगा और वो बातें भी नहीं दोहराऊंगा जो इससे पहले लोग हुए हैं। न मैं फिलिस्तीन की तारीख पर कोई रोशनी डाल सकता हूँ, मैं डालना चाहता हूँ। मैं तो बात वहाँ से शुरू करूँगा कि आज हम लोग यहाँ फिलिस्तीन में जो जर्नलिस्ट हैं उनके नाहक कत्ल पर जो है अपना शोक व्यक्त करने के लिए जमा हुए और हम शर्मिंदा इस बात पर हैं कि हमें इतना वक्त लगा कि इस दौरान तकरीबन 270 जर्नलिस्ट जो हैं वो शहीद हो गए। लेकिन फिर भी वो कहते हैं कि गांधी हम शर्मिंदा हैं, तेरे खातिर जिंदा है। वो बात वही है। मैं देखता हूँ इस चीज़ को इस एंगल से कि वर्ल्ड वॉर 1 में, वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 में, इराक के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में, अफगानिस्तान के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में, कोरिया के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में, यूगोस्लाविया में, बोस्निया में, जितनी भी दुनिया में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रही हैं, उन तमाम में कुल मिलाकर भी इतने जर्नलिस्ट नहीं मारे गए जितने अकेले गाजा में मारे गए। और ये हम लोगों के लिए बड़ी फिक्र की और अफसोस की बात थी। जब हम लोग इस मीटिंग को ऑर्गेनाइज करने के बारे में प्लानिंग के स्टेजेस में थे और हमारे सामने अनस के कत्ल का मामला जो था वो सबके सामने था, तो उसी रोज उस अस्पताल की बमबारी हो गई जिसमें रॉयटर्स का फोटोग्राफर मिस नासर नजरी जो है और उसके 4 साथी हैं मारे। चलिए, हो सकता है जिस दौरान हम आपसे बात कर रहे हो उस दौरान भी कोई जो है शहीद हो गया। अब मसला सबसे बड़ा ये है कि इजराइल ने अपने नैरेटिव को दुनिया पर चलाने के लिए जो स्ट्रेटेजी इख्तियार की है वो ये है कि वो जर्नलिस्टों को मारने से पहले या मारने के बाद उनको एक बदनाम करने की मुहिम चला है। उनकी आर्मी में एक जस्टिफिकेशन यूनिट थी जो ये बताता है कि जर्नलिस्ट जिसको शहीद किया गया है वो जर्नलिस्ट नहीं बल्कि हमास का एक ऑपरेटिव है। अनस के बारे में भी यही बात कही है, लेकिन अनस के बारे में ये बातें भी सामने आई कि उसको अगस्त की 10 तारीख को मारने से पहले तो उसको टेलीफोन पर धमकियां दी जाती थी, उसकी फैमिली मेंबर्स को धमकियां दी जाती थी कि तुम जो है अपना काम छोड़ दो और सजा से चले जाओ। लेकिन अनस ने इन तमाम पंक्तियों के आगे झुकने से इनकार किया, इसलिए उसको एलिमिनेट कर दिया गया। और ये बात जो है बहुत कम लोगों ने इसका एहसास किया होगा कि रॉयटर्स जैसा इदारा जो सारी दुनिया में खबरें फराहम करता है, वो अपने जर्नलिस्टों के फोकल जर्नलिस्टों के माध्यम पर जो है अफसोस का इजहार नहीं करता। तो इसराइल ने जो नैरेटिव पेश किया है उसको आगे बढ़ाने की कोशिश करता है। न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स हो या दूसरे अखबार हो वेस्ट के, वो एक तरह से कन्वेयर बेल्ट्स बन गए हैं झूठ को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए। और खुद किसी एजेंसी ने ये सवाल नहीं किया कि अनस को अगर आपने हमास का ऑपरेटिव बताया है तो उसको जस्टिफाई करने के लिए आपके पास बैकग्राउंड क्या था, जबकि ओपन दुनिया है, ओपन हर चीज़ है। इन्वेस्टिगेटिव जर्नलिस्ट जो है वो इस बात की तय तक बड़ी आसानी से पहुंच सकते थे, लेकिन ऐसा कहीं नहीं हुआ। हमें इस बात की खुशी है कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने पहली मरतबा जर्नलिस्टों के मारे जाने पर जो है एक स्टैंड ली, हालांकि वो भी बहुत ही वीक स्टैंड है। और खुशी उस बात से ज़्यादा हम लोगों को जिस चीज़ का है, जिस पर मैं अपनी बात को खत्म करूँगा, वो ये है कि हमारी सरकार ने वो रोल अदा नहीं किया जो उसको इस वर्ल्ड स्टेज पर अदा करना चाहिए। हमारी सरकार ने इसराइल के साथ दोस्ती और उसको जो है अपने साथ लेकर चलने का जो फैसला किया था, उसके पीछे उसकी मंशा ये थी कि इसराइली लॉबी अमेरिका में जो है इंडियन इंटरेस्ट को जो है सेफगार्ड करेगी। लेकिन ऐसा हुआ नहीं, बल्कि इसका उलट हो रहा है। और दूसरी चीज़ ये कि हम अगर विश्व गुरु बनने के ख्वाब देखते हैं और इस बात को जो है बार बार फैलाते हैं, तो हमने ऐसा कोई काम नहीं किया हमारी सरकारों ने जो इस बात को इंश्योर करे कि लोग सारी दुनिया के लिए हमारी तरफ देखें। पता नहीं ऐसा छोटा सा मुल्क, कितनी आबादी है, कितना उसका एरिया है, लेकिन उसने इतने बड़े बड़े डिप्लोमेटिक कारनामे अंजाम दिए हैं कि तारीख उसको याद करेगी। और हमारे इशूज, जब श्रीलंका का मामला चल रहा था IPT का और IPTS का, तो स्वीडन और नॉर्वे जैसी सरकारों ने जो है मध्यस्थता की और इस मामले को जो है अपने इख्तिताम तक पहुँचाया। यहाँ हमारा भी रोल होना चाहिए कि हमारी गवर्नमेंट जो है वो पहल करे और पैलेस्टीनियन इशू को सॉल्व करने के जो है एक प्रोएक्टिव रोल जो उसको अदा कर सकती है वो करना चाहिए। मैं समझता हूँ कि हम लोग बहुत कुछ नहीं कर सकते, तो अपनी सरकार को इस बात के लिए तैयार तो करें कि वो इस मामले में पहल करें। शुक्रिया।
I must say that's a very important point made, that see, part of this fledgling thing which we have created, Indian Journalists for Palestine, should be a pressure point for the government also, not to take an ambivalent attitude and abstain from all voting on all forums, which it has been doing, whether it's the Ukraine war or the Palestinian question, but take a proactive role. So at least I find that for the first time they issued a statement which was brought to my attention by Kalpana Sharma, that they actually, the foreign ministry spokesperson Jaiswal actually issued a statement to that effect. So we should sort of try and further that process. Now, as we move on, and I call upon, like I already said, Srinivasan Jain has not only reported extensively on different platforms from the region, so we really love to learn about those things, but he's also taken all the trouble to come here, and we really appreciate that gesture. So, Srinivasan Jain.
Thanks very much indeed, Gurveer and the Patrkar Sangh for organizing this gathering. I think when journalists are attacked anywhere, they're attacked everywhere. And oppressive regimes around the world are constantly looking for ways of further shrinking their freedoms. They're looking at Gaza and thinking that even if they cannot go as far as Israel, at least they can move the needle an inch of further shrinking the freedoms that are allowed to journalists. And as you know, an inch can become a mile. As we gather here in solidarity with Palestinian journalists in Gaza and the West Bank, it's worth noting that Palestinian journalists are not necessarily only covering the war. Since October the 7th, they have been bearing witness to their own demise and to the extinction of their people and their homeland. To be clear, even before October the 7th, they've never had the conventional advantages afforded to journalists reporting conflict, of having a distance from the story, of having somewhere to retreat to after you come back from the front lines. I had the briefest insight into this when in 2014 I was in Gaza for 10 days to cover that war. It was called Operation Protective Edge by the Israeli army. It lasted for 7 weeks and 2,000 Palestinians were killed. And about an estimated 70 members of the Israeli army, the IDF. So that was a ratio of 1:30. At that time, 2,000 seemed like a huge number, but it's now almost been rendered meaningless by what we're seeing today. Gaza was like no theater of war that I've ever covered. Then as now, it wasn't even, as one of the speakers said earlier, a war in the conventional sense. There are no clearly demarcated front lines. There is not even the semblance of a parity between the combatants, where you have one of the most sophisticated militaries in the world taking on a militia that fires missiles, if they can be called that, makeshift missiles which are mostly taken out by Israel's Iron Dome. You're basically locked into a 26-mile-long strip, and all you can do as a journalist, as we did, is that you spend your nights in anxiety, listening to the thump of Israeli bombs falling in different parts of the strip, and then you make your way to the scene of the greatest carnage the next morning to report. Once you get to the scene of the bombing, you begin looking for answers. And the answers are always the same. The IDF almost has a standard boilerplate statement that the target of the strike was a Hamas base or a Hamas rocket launching site. And yes, it's true, Hamas does fire rockets from the Gaza Strip. We ourselves were able to capture one such launch on camera. But in many, many cases, there are still to date no clear answers as to why a UN shelter or a school or a residential complex or a commercial complex or a university or entire neighborhoods were laid to waste, and why so many women, children, the elderly, young men with no discernible link to Hamas were killed. We would then have to find a rooftop to upload our stories, to dispatch our stories. Because rooftops are the only places in Gaza where you get a signal. In every conflict, and even otherwise, Israel ensures that communications out of Gaza are severely restricted. Today, there are no rooftops left in Gaza. The Nasser hospital was one such rooftop where there was access for journalists to upload their footage, their content, to the signals that you could avail from there. And now that's gone. So that, for my team in 2014, was a window into what the life of a Palestinian journalist is. Of course, we could exit, they could not. What we're seeing today is a dramatic worsening. Before October 7th, Palestinian journalists were routinely harassed. At checkposts, they were detained, and yes, they faced the threat of violence. But now all bets are off. They're being slaughtered along with their families in large numbers in a way that is unprecedented. Last year I had travelled back to Israel to report on the 1-year anniversary of the war, and as spoke to Shrook Siraj. She was the wife of Roshni Siraj, who is a journalist and filmmaker based in Gaza. And they have an 11-month-old daughter, Tanya, who is probably now 1 year old. Through voice notes, because it's very hard to reach journalists in Gaza, through voice notes, Shrook described how Roshni was killed in front of her in their home with an Israeli strike. There was no prior warning. This again, to Israel's claim that they are the most moral army because they warned the victims in advance before striking. There was no warning here. And she watched her husband, Tanya was next to her, she watched her husband die in front of her. Both of them narrowly escaped with injuries. What is also new now is the large-scale smearing of Palestinian journalists as Hamas, as some of the speakers pointed to earlier, even before and after being killed. So first you have posters describing them as Hamas, then you have IDF spokespersons labeling them as Hamas, as in the case of Anas al-Sharif, which is why Palestinian journalists are writing their wills, even though they're 20, 30 years old. As the eyes of the Palestinian media are blinded, what is the rest of the world? What's the media and the rest of the world doing? Much as the Western press has helped provide cover to Israel's actions, by repeating Israel's smears against Palestinian reporters without a shred of scrutiny. Not the kind of scrutiny that is awaged to one of their own, as many of you might remember, the Wall Street Journal reporter Ivan Gorskovich, who was arrested in Russia, was picked up in Russia. The headline there was, Ivan Gorskovich arrested on false claims. There was no ambivalence, there was no caveats, even though many at that time did not even know the charges against Gorskovich. But the front page, the first line of the New York Times article on the killing of Anas al-Sharif mentioned the fact that Israel labeled them as Hamas. And that's the line taken largely by the Western media. Israel's crackdown on information systems is so severe that UN staff, aid workers and doctors have become informal journalists, informal reporters. But it's also worth taking note, even as we talk about the systematic attempt to collapse information systems in Gaza, it's worth taking note of the extraordinary work being done by not just the Palestinian journalists who continue to report from there despite the risks, but also by a handful of Israeli media and rights groups. Because as for the Israeli press, their TV channels make ours look like Pulitzer nominees. But the notable exceptions, the Israeli daily Haaretz, of course, as we know, which has systematically reported on the excesses and the abuses of what is unfolding in Gaza and in the occupation and over the occupation in general. Most recently, reported on the deliberate strategy, the idea strategy of firing on civilians at Gaza's food distribution centers. There's also, and again for those who might be looking for resources, the 972 magazine, which comes out of Haifa, plus 972, that's the sort of phone code for Israel, which just a week ago, along with the Guardian, reported on how Israel had vastly exaggerated the number of Hamas fighters it has killed. According to the stories, figures from a classified IDF database shows that 9,000 fighters were killed or probably dead in May, which is far removed from the IDF claim of having killed 25,000-30,000 fighters. Then there is Breaking the Silence, which is a collection of former IDF soldiers who are breaking the silence on the abuses and the war crimes of their own military and in the occupied territories, not just in Gaza. Last year I interviewed one of their members, Joel Carmel, in Jerusalem, a former soldier. He told me about a new report they were bringing out in which IDF soldiers who served in Gaza in this war have testified, and to the point that Israel makes that Hamas uses human shields, IDF soldiers have testified how the Israeli army uses human shields. When Palestinian civilians are made to wear IDF uniforms, are strapped with a GoPro camera, and are sent into buildings and locations where there might be a booby trap. Another valuable resource has consistently Patrkar the rights group which is based in Tel Aviv and has presence in the West Bank, which most recently reported last year on the enhanced torture of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli prisons, which is often a neglected chapter of what is going on right now. And after October 7th, the levels of torture have escalated dramatically. I interviewed 2 such prisoners in Nablus last year who were released because the charges against them are simply unsustainable. And one of them, as he was describing what was done to him in Megiddo prison, which is one of Israel's most notorious prisons, where dogs are set upon you and where, incidentally, a video was made of IDF soldiers gangrene the prisoner. As he was describing it, he grabbed my hand suddenly. He grabbed my hand suddenly and said, "Feel my heart." And he was sweating profusely. This is several months after he'd been released, but just recounting his own experience was that traumatic for him. So Patrkar has again been doing excellent work. So there are attempts to hold Israel accountable, even if nothing comes of it. It's finally taken the Nasser hospital killing to get Benjamin Netanyahu to issue arguably his first apology for the killing of journalists and for an investigation to be announced. We know this is laughable. We know this for a multiple number of reasons, but we certainly know this in the case of Shireen Abdul Akleh, who, despite being a US citizen, despite being killed by a sniper, despite being killed in the pre-October 7th impunity, and despite the first time Western media having to investigate a killing and point out that it was targeted, it was deliberate, Israel reflected, denied, finally conducted an investigation and said it was a mistake. And it's only after that Zeteo, the media platform of Mehdi Hassan, who's now based in America, British journalist, identified the soldier, that he learned that this was something that was planned in advance. And the documentary contained a chilling detail which stayed with me, that after she was killed and after the global outcry, despite the global outcry, the IDF was using her image as target practice. So despite the complete absence of accountability, despite the risks, Palestinian reporters are still out there every day. And I asked one of them about it last year, why this is the case. And they said their determination to record the extermination of their people is informed by history. There is a sense of regret that prior generations could not record the Nakba of 1948, the first great act that they cleansed. And a lot of those records were deliberately destroyed, but there was a sense that that entire chapter of history was somehow wiped out or erased in their own telling of it. And so we owe it to them to raise our voice and protest, even if it is futile, even if it is pointless, because impunity, whether in India or in Israel, thrives in silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinivas, for those insights. Before we have His Excellency speaking, I'll just request one more journalist to say a few words. Gautam Navlatha, who is here with us. Just a few words. He's been an old journalist, and thanks to the state we have him in Bombay. So, let us get some experience from him.
I don't want to take too much of your time because I would like to listen to His Excellency. All I want to say is that I feel extremely anguished, embarrassed, ashamed that the country my country, which stood by and was one of the first countries to recognize the Palestinian people's struggle, today is hands in glove. Firoz mentioned the names of many countries which have been complicit in this genocide, mentioned the names of the United States, UK, France, Germany and all. I think he forgot India because we are as much a party to this genocide as the Western countries. But unlike the West and North America, where the civil society woke up and was out marching on the streets and protesting and is still challenging the narrative of the values and authorities, Indian civil society is completely silent, and we have been pushed into silence also by a government which banned virtually protests in favor of Palestine. So I mean, I don't feel, I don't know what the state we have reached. I find it terribly embarrassing. I'm filled with outrage. I don't want to add anything. I think I would much rather listen to you, because I don't think there is much happening in this country. And after 2 years, if we woke up to a genocide that was taking place in front of our eyes, I think it speaks the volumes for the state of our state and society. Thank you.
Thank you for this, we have with us an actor who has been also participating in the support and solidarity struggle, Patrkar Sangh. We welcome him here. Thank you very much for coming and joining the journalists in our small protest. And again, I'll remind you, as we go out, there are candles at the entrance of the Patrkar Sangh. And please light one or more than one. Finally, we come to the last part of our program, which you all anxiously awaiting. His Excellency Abdullah Abu Saresh. Welcome to Mumbai, and we'd love to have your views and how we can in any way help with the we feel helpless, but we try and do something, whatever is possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much indeed. It's not an easy task to take the mic after the outspoken persons, the journalists, who's taking the floor before me and deliver a speech, especially related to the journalism, media, and all of this stuff. And I should be very frank when I say that I'm an economist. I'm not a politician, but really a Palestinian, born and raised to be a politician by default. This is we used to breastfeed the politician. But when I even appointed to the United Nations, I graduated to be an economist, and in the United Nations I was working only in the sustainable development issue, and even when President Abbas appointed me to be an ambassador of Nigeria, I told them I'm an economist and I would like to work in the sustainable development issue and to strengthen ties between Palestine and that great country in the sustainable development issue. But when the Trojan horse happened, and when I say Trojan horse, I mean October 7th, it's a fact that it became a Trojan horse. I find myself having no other choice except to be a journalist, to be a writer, to be a media man. I'm not a professional, but I try my best. So thank you so much indeed. This is very important introduction for me, so that if you feel that this is not a journalist, this is not a professional man, so because all of you is a very professional in this field, this is your specialty, and I came after many people I have, many distinguished brothers here, whom very specialized and deliver their speech and deliver their statement. So allow me also to start by thanking the organizer for this very important event. It's really very important for me for many reasons, of course. On top of that, yes, we are in a desperate need as a Palestinian people to raise our voice, not only here, worldwide. Our voice is completely blocked, completely shadow banned, and it's not a new phenomenon. It was there. This is something that we will not hesitate to say that our voice was completely blocked a long time, and we are not on the media. even after 273 of your police journalists had been assassinated and targeted, not killed, targeted, because voting had a meaning, still the Western media is used to say, yes, we want Israel to open the border for an independent journalist. Take a look to the word independent journalist, so that according to them, 237 of your police are independent. This is the biased media. This is the controlled media. And when I say controlled media, it's not anti-Semitic, because I'm a Semitic man, so that no one can accuse me of being Semitic. The media is totally controlled to some extent in many places in the world, but in many other places in the world. And some other places in the world, unfortunately, even the media, and unfortunately in many of the friends' countries, is not giving us the opportunity to appear on their screens. I'm not revealing a secret when I say that some of those media guys in a friend's country even did not give us as ambassador of Palestine to pay them even a courtesy visit. Media. So that when I had been invited to this event, I found it a very important opportunity, and to be very frank, even my colleagues there and my team in the office encouraged me, you should go. You must go. It's our opportunity. And I did not spare any opportunity to meet with them at any time, of course, and at any cost. And I used to tell my team, I want to meet with the media who is very broad. And we witness, and I'm monitoring the media here in India, I witnessed by myself some of the media and the journalists took a step backward. I witnessed that, and I used to call them and to say, it's time to listen to us. And one of them, she told me, listen, I went to Israel many times, and I know she's, but she told me, I cannot, under any circumstances, defending more what is happening there. So, we have a duty, collective duty. But before I also talk about the collective duty, I want to remind you, this is not the first time that the Palestinian journalists have been targeted. Well, I can call him, riskfully call him, a Palestinian journalist. He's a Jewish, was Jacob Israel Dahian. Jacob Israel Dahian in 1924. The gangs, the terrorist gang, and this is not our word, this is the mandate, the British mandate. They labeled them as a terrorist gang, Lehi, Haganah, and others. The Jewish military gangs assassinated the first ever journalist in Palestine in 1924 because they believed that Dahian, Jacob Israel Dahian, was threatening to the existential threat to their project. So they assassinated him. It is in all of this information in the Google and anywhere you can find it. I mean, Google it, you will find it. So that it's not a new phenomenon for the Israeli military gangs, terrorist gangs, and terrorists is their label, of course. This is not our word. This is your old occupier, your old colonizer. They called it a terrorist gang. So that this is not the first time that they used to kill the journalists. And in March 13, 2022, in the second intifada, when they targeted, we should not forget the Italian journalist Rafael Carello, whom was assassinated and targeted during the first intifada. Then all of you know the story of Shireen Abbas, which is not, even Shireen is not Muslim, she is a Christian and American citizen, but Palestinian. And all of you know her story. Then ongoing massacres that target only the Palestinian journalists. I will not only, because you watch the last war crime that happened in live on the screen, on the Al Jazeera screen, but before that, few days, 2 weeks ago, they assassinated Anas al-Sharif. After 682 days of moving, Anas used to podcast, to a reporter from every single street in Gaza. Then they discover after 682 days that he's a part of Hamas. So that they did not use, but they used to call it surgical strike. But they choose to kill him alongside with other 5 others. This is the exact proof that they are targeting that journalists intentionally targeting. Understand? You already mentioned the name of Dahduh. Dahduh family was completely, they threatened him through the phone. Wa'il Dahduh, your colleague Wa'il, they threatened him through the phone. If you did not stop, you will pay the price. Wa'il did not stop. Then he paid the price from his entire family. And Wa'il buried him and back to report it for him. Then they assassinated his son. Wa'il even buried his son and back to report. Then Al Jazeera called him because they know that they could target. Why is it with a broken heart? So this is the issue when it came to the media. A very important subject I would like to shed light on, which is history. I'm looking to alert you when I should. 5 minutes? History. Our history was not started in November 2nd, 1917, when you occupied, and we the Palestinians should not hesitate to point the finger to the one who started this evil misery against the Palestinians. The Palestinian people the suffering of the Palestinian people was started by the United Kingdom. Your occupier, when they gifted our homeland voluntarily, without even, they did not at that time have any single footprint in our homeland. They was occupying, but they gifted our homeland to the Khazarian. And when I say Khazarian, I want to all the time today what's the meaning of Khazarian, who have zero connection, zero DNA connection to Israel, Yaqub, and Prophet Israel and Prophet Yaqub. They converted to Judaism 1100 years ago. And this means a lot for us. So United Kingdom, November 2nd, issued the despicable Balfour Declaration. In this declaration, they gifted our homeland to the European Khazarian. But again, this is not the start of our history started tens of thousands of years ago. So when they used to say that there is no such thing called the Palestinian people, likewise the fanatic, Messianic United States of American ambassador to Israel, Hakati, said a few months ago, there is no such thing called a Palestinian. He's a preacher, Christian preacher, but he did not even realize that we the Palestinians, by our explicit Arabic name, Palestinian, is there in the first chapter, in the first book of Genesis, of the Holy Book, of the Torah itself, in Genesis, verses 21/36. We sojourned Abraham in the land of the Palestinian land many days. In Hebrew, ויגר אברהם בארץ הפלסטינית ימים רבים. Because you imagine those people, how they are thinking about the Palestinians, how they are more dangerous, not only about for the Palestinians people, but for the entire world. preacher who should very first issue to remember is the Genesis, which anyone, when you open any book, you're gonna read the first chapter. When you open the Bible itself, you're gonna read the first chapter is Genesis. And the very first ever, in the very first page, we are there in our explicit need, but those fanatic people, those criminal people, used to deny the facts, even the fact that they should preach. This is the way how much they are dangerous, not only against for the Palestinians, but for the entire people all around the world. And I did not need, there is no need to remind you what they mentioned about in there just a few days ago. I mean, back to the war in Gaza. It was not started in October 6th. What about October 6th? Anyone know what happened to the Palestinian people in October 6th? Did the killing of the Palestinian people make any news in any screen worldwide? Assassinating or targeting and assassinating the Palestinian children for fun, and when I say for fun, I mean it. When I say targeting the Palestinian children to take them for their social media, I mean it, and we have videos, not videos. We have pictures and videos about it. But does this make any news on any screen out there? Since January 1st, 2023, till October 6th, Friday, October 6th, 2023, more than 400 Palestinians have been targeted, killed, assassinated. More than, out of them, more than 29 child. And the vast majority of them in West Bank, where there is no Hamas, nothing, and all of this stuff, that they use them as examples. One of them called Muhammad al-Tamimi. I know his family, I know his father, I know his family. 2.5 years old. The war was started a long time ago. The war was started by the United Kingdom. British started this war. They sowed the seeds for all the evil and the misery that we are facing, and we are witnessing. The same exact country that Cuban killed and assassinated tens of thousands of your people by hunger. And you remember that, I'm pretty sure. But accusing the Palestinian people of being terrorists, this is not the first, we are not the first one of being terrorists, accusing of being terrorists. Your occupier again accused you in 1857 of being terrorists, anarchists, and all of this stuff. And they hanged to death many of your loved ones. Loved sons. Even President Abbas is the one who's day and night calling for a peaceful resistance. They called him a terrorist diplomat. And they day and night calling for dismantling the Palestinian Authority because this is a terrorist organization. So the classification of people for the Palestinian people to be terrorists is there. Each one of us as a Palestinian, even if we resisted their occupation by bomb, we are terrorists. But if there is Israeli and there is a lot of Israelis and hundreds and thousands of Jewish people who are aligning themselves with us, hate self-Jew. And if any one of you now raise his voice, you are not Jewish, not Palestinian, but you are anti-Semitic. One word. And if you raise your voice very strongly, you are anti-Semitic and Holocaust denier. You have, there is no, the classification is there. Even this classification is reached they're very prominent friends. France is the country that delivered and supplied them with the nuclear weapons. Now France is inciting and igniting the anti-Semitism. So the classification is there. Yasser Arafat is terrorist. Elite Yasser Arafat is terrorist. The current president, who day and night again is calling for a peaceful resistance, is also a terrorist. But the question is, because time is very limited, I have many things to talk about. But the question is the way out. Is this a battle for the Palestinian, or is this should be a Palestinian people struggle, or this is a collective struggle for anyone worldwide who's believing that we, the human being, have share a human future. This is a struggle for everyone who believes no one is safe until everyone is safe. And anyone who believes that the Palestinian is far away from Allah, what to do with the Palestinian? The Israeli Messianic, the current Israeli Messianic government is day and night pushing very hard to deteriorate this war to become a religious war. And if it is happening, right, it's not only the current, and the American fanatic American people, whom is the evangelical, and on top of them, of course, the current American ambassador to Israel, pushing very hard to make sure that this is a religious war. If it happened like this, if it deteriorated to become a religious war, no one will be safe. And history teach us a lot of lessons when it came to religion. And when it came to a religious issue, my very first ever boss in the Ministry of Planning and International Corporation was a Jewish man. His name is Ilan Halevi. When we articulate the first government under the chairmanship of Yasser Arafat, one of our ministers was Rabbi, Jewish Rabbi, Moshe Haush. The first one to smuggle weapons to Yasser Arafat. And I want you to listen carefully to all of these names because it's very important. I'm just shedding light because this is not Muslim against Jewish, like it was not Hindus against British colonization, British Christian. It was people under the British colonization against the British colonization. So it was not Muslim. It is not Muslim. But it happened that we are the Muslim. 97% of them, consisting of our society, 97%. The first one to smuggle weapons to Yasser Arafat is a Christian Archbishop, Capuchin. The one who established the most tough military resistance against the Israeli was George Habash, Christian man. The outspoken person on behalf of the Palestinian people. Now, the outspoken person, the very famous writers, the vast majority of them is Jewish people. The outspoken person in Palestine today is Hanan Ashrawi, Christian woman. Yasser Arafat was a Christian. His spokesman was a Christian. The BNF, the Palestinian National Fund chairman, is Ramzi Khoury, Dr. Ramzi Khoury is a Christian. Jewish is there in our life as a Jewish, but not as occupation. We will not accept their narrative that the God created two types of people, the Jewish and the Gentile. And our main purpose as a Gentile, all of you of course, I'm sorry to say that, is to serve the 17 million Jews. This is the mentality that is guiding this society. This is the mentality that allows them to kill with a very cold blood the Palestinian people. This is the mentality that allowed them to trample by their tanks Palestinian families, and we saw pictures. This is the mentality that gave them the ability to snap 2.5 years old. This is the mentality that this is the essence of what so-called the terrorist and terrorist. To talk about the Palestinian question, it's a time consuming, it takes us a lot of time, but before again, what to do? Together, what to do? If we believe that this gonna affect you, whether you like it or you would not, this is gonna affect your humanitarian sense. You should not stop watching. You should not watch the Palestinian, your colleagues, the journalists, to be assassinated and targeted. Then the Western media to say we need the Israeli to open the border for the foreign media because we want to see independent report. So 200 again, 38, one of your colleagues is not independent. This is very dangerous work. What to do? If you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We should go together because this is not our question. Yes, it is. We are paying from our blood in a daily basis. And my family there in Gaza. I was born in a refugee camp in Gaza, so that my entire family is there, my nephew. And the question that did I lost some of my relatives or not? Should not be the question. How many of you, for anyone from Gaza, when you ask him how many of your relatives did you lose? Not whether you lost, and I lost a lot of my relatives and my cousins. But the question is what to do. We should go together because this will affect you and you have a moral responsibility. It's really moral responsibility. You will not be able to report it, but it is fair to listen to us. It is fair, and this is my humble appeal to all of you. Listen to us. Come with the very tough question. Start by October 7th. Start by the hostages. Then the hostages, we discovered only there are 50 hostages. We did not minimize the misery of those hostages at all, and we should be back to their home right now. But what about the other 10,500 Palestinian hostages? There is 73 of them has been killed, targeted inside the Israeli jail. One of them has been raped in front of the camera. One of them, man, be raped in front of the camera. Then it was discussed in the Israeli Knesset, not from a legal perspective, but from a moral point of view. And the one who conducted this very shameful act, he went in his social media, and you can think about this. And he said, yes, I'm proud, and I will continue. This is the sick society that is guiding them. Of course, with the evangelicals leading the vast majority of the Americans. We are all in danger, but we are on the eye of the Rahman of Abraham. And it's not only God, we stand in the eye of the soul. Speaking of the Palestinian here, I know it's gonna take a lot of time, but again, my humble opinion, my humble appeal to all of you, reach out to us, listen to us. I think all of you were very tough question. I'm here in New Delhi. I can claim another. You can invite me after one. I can came here to spend one entire day for meeting. To spend one entire day just to answer some of these very critical questions that to counter the Israeli narrative. Because the Israeli narrative is very dangerous, not only against the Palestinian people. Trampling the international law is not in favor of anyone. Threatening the ICC judge, and it's not in favor of anyone. It's not in favor. Then to went down and declare and to say that the International Criminal Court was created for Russia and the African people. And of course, other countries, they decide, but not for Israel, but not for the Americans themselves, the Europeans themselves. It's very dangerous. Again, I'm in your hands, and thank to the Zoom meeting, through the phone, to contact me back in my office, and I'm pretty sure that we will be in my office very soon. Please contact me. Make sure that because wording all the time have a meaning, and you have a very important and very significant responsibility to save the world as a journalist. Not to save you, not to end just your salary, but to save the world. And to save the world, we should all make sure that the world all the time in front of the people. With that, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well, just in there, I think we can take one or two questions. So if there are any questions, we can quickly take some.
Yes, please. We would also like to know what is happening in the West Bank.
Yeah, sure. In the West Bank, I can just read one example in the West Bank. The vast majority of the water that the Israeli is used in Israel and everywhere is came from West Bank. We are denied the right to dig the wells too. And they used to dig this well to expose the water and to resell it to us in the 3 tons, and not in a sufficient amount, so that in Ramallah, in Khalil districts, for example, in the summer we are suffering. I'm telling you just in a daily basis how can we use it. We are talking about 10,500 Palestinian homeless in the Israeli jail. The vast majority of them is, of course, from West Bank, not Gaza. Approximately 5,000 of them is just under the administrative detention, which means that there is no fight, but there is decision to make sure that X, Y should be in there. All of them without no exception, all of those prisoners is subject to a daily ill treatment, torture, and then a human treatment. We have video, we have tens of videos of course. Fustan, for example, is a village. And in because it's a mountain, you're going to find in these villages one entrance, and sometimes the very lucky village have 2 entrances and exit. But the vast majority of it is one entrance. 1,000, around 1,000 plus, but we are talking about 1,000 gate, put aside the checkpoints, the military checkpoints, gates, iron gates with a key. It's not controlled only by the Israeli soldiers. One of these days, and we have the videos, any one of those criminal terrorist Israelis decided to close the gate, you will not back to your family, or you will not be able to leave your because there's someone decided, he woke up very nervous, then he decided, those criminal people decided to close and to shut down the entry. 3 days ago, in the center of Ramadan, and this is not the first time, they went inside the Ramadan, hijack, control, and invade the exchange money offices, and withdraw all the money. And we have the video. They have no problem. They used to even to, because when tested the weapons in Gaza. They used to test it, and you already told me about that. They used to test it, take it, and publish it. So when they used to go to the exhibits, I mean, to the weapons, to sell their weapons, they used to use the review that how it is tested, and the Israeli Prime Minister told the recent group of journalists, Indian journalists who visited, it's a tested weapons. So again, in Ramallah, they invade the exchange on